This is an introduction to straight line graph work. Here is an example of a straight line graph on the board. I've put up a y and x axis and I've got a straight line graph like so. In the examination you may be asked to draw lots of different straight lines. For example, you may be asked to draw this straight line, which looks pretty similar to the first straight line, but it's in a slightly different position and it's not quite as steep as the original straight line. It's a bit shallower compared to that one. You may be asked to draw a straight line that goes straight up, like so. You may be asked to draw a straight line that goes diagonally that way. So there's lots of different straight lines that you can draw and be asked to draw by the examiner. Now if the examiner wants you to draw a particular straight line, they've got to tell you which straight line that they want you to draw. And the best way of being able to tell you what straight line that they'd like you to draw is by actually giving the straight line what I would call a name. Now I could call each of these straight lines by different names. For example, let's be ridiculous about this. I could call this one, for example, straight line John. I could call straight line Peter. I could call this one straight line Lisa. I could call the original one I did straight line Rose. For example, those are 4 names and I could call those straight lines by those names. Now the problem with doing that is you would have to learn off by heart what straight line John looked like, what straight line Rose looked like. You'd have to remember accurately what it was and you'd have to learn lots of points. And you might say, not a problem. Well, of course, the problem is there's actually an infinite number of straight lines that you could be asked to draw. So each one of these is a different straight line that you could be asked to draw on an XY axis. Now there is absolutely no way, if you assign an ordinary name of a person to a straight line, that you can possibly learn all these, because literally there's an infinite number of names you would have to learn for the infinite number of straight lines. So obviously that is not a viable option for you to do. So what mathematicians do, instead of giving the straight lines a name like Peter or John or Rose or Lisa, instead they give the straight line what we call a mathematical name. And the mathematical name is usually referred to as the equation of the straight line. But really it's just a mathematical name. It's a way of identifying the straight line that we're talking about. And what will happen is that mathematical name, once you are given that mathematical name, you will be able to use that mathematical name or equation to actually work out what the straight line looks like from the actual equation itself. So you can work out what it looks like. You don't have to memorize what it looks like. So for example, let me show you with some very simple examples how this works. Okay, so if I look at question number 1, I'm going to give you a mathematical name of a straight line. Okay, and the first straight line that I'm going to give you is y equals 2x's plus 1. Okay, for this particular mathematical name or equation of a straight line, okay, you will see we've got a y on the left hand side, and this is what you will find in nearly all equations or names of straight lines, that you have a y on its own on the left hand side equals some x's and then a number. Okay, now if you want to be able to work out what this picture looks like, then it's very simple. We set up something called a table of values and we work out from that table of values some points to plot on a graph which we can then join up and hopefully get a straight line. Let me show you. We set up this table of values looking like this. We have x and y values. These are going to stand for the x and y coordinates of each point, and we're going to work out some points. Now the values in this part of the table I am going to pick for myself, and if you're going to say to yourself, what are the easiest values you can use? Well, what are the easiest numbers you can use? The easiest numbers are going to be 0, 1, 2 and 3. You can use any x numbers you like if you are given a choice by the examiner. So you could use 2, 4, 6, 8. You could use -5, -3, it doesn't really matter. Positive, negative, going up in 1s, going up in 2s, going up in 10s. It doesn't matter. You can use decimals. If you're given a choice though, Choose nice, easy x numbers like 0, 1, 2, 3. Well, what you need to do then is for the x numbers that you have got, usually you pick them yourself. If the examiner tells you what x numbers to use, then you use whatever they say. Once you've got those x numbers written down, you work out the y numbers to go with them. Okay, so for example, if x equals 0, we now look at the name or the equation of the line that we're talking about. The equation of the line, or the name of the line, is y equals 2x plus 1. Now what does that actually mean? What it means is that every point that lies on that line must obey that little rule or that little equation. So every point that lies on the line, the y value must be equal to 2 times the x value plus 1. If it doesn't, then the point does not lie on that line. So for example, if x is nothing, then to find the y value that goes with that, which lies on my line that I'm trying to draw, you say that the y value must be equal to 2 times nothing, that's nothing, add 1. That must be 1. So what I've got there, which I'll just circle, is a point which I can then plot. 0, 1. So I've now got 1 point to plot. The x value is 0 and the y value is 1. Let's have a look at a second point. I'm saying that x must be 1. Okay, if x is equal to 1, what will the y value be? The y value will be 2 times 1, 2 x's, 2 1's, which is 2, plus 1, that will be 3. So we have a second point to plot, which will be 1, 3. Now, I'm writing these points underneath, but once you get used to this method, you do not have to keep writing the coordinates underneath. You can just use the table and plot them direct to a graph. Okay, the third one. If x is 2, the y value to go with it must be equal to 2 2's, 4, plus 1, 5. That's a third point, which is 2, 5 to plot. We then look at the fourth point. X equals 3. Y value to go with it will be 2 3's are 6, plus 1, 7. So there is a fourth point to plot. 3, 7. So if I now set up some axes, I will set up the axes here. I won't do them too big, but it is going to be an accurate picture that I'm going to do. The x numbers 0, 1, 2, 3 need to be plotted. So 0, equal spacings, 1, 2, 3. And the y numbers need to go up to 7 to be able to plot this table and these 4 points. So the y numbers, now for this work, you do not have to have the same scale for the y-axis as the x-axis to get your picture. In an exam, it may be they set up the axes for you. They do that on several occasions in exam questions, but on occasions you have to set them up yourself. So if you're setting it up yourself for this type of question, I'm going to go up, for example, in 2's here. You do not have to have the same scale. If you're given a choice, you can change the y scale compared to the x scale. Okay, let's go. 0, 1, let's plot that. That means 0 on the x and up 1 on the y, which is there. Second, 1, 3. 1 on the x and up to 3 on the y. That's there. 2, 5. That means 2 on the x and up to 5 on the y. And then last of all, 3, 7, 3, 7, 3 on the x and up to 7 on the y, which is there. You then get a ruler out. I'm going to do this freehand, but you get the idea. You get a ruler out and you join them up, and you should get a perfect straight line. Mine's not very perfect, it's gone a bit wobbly. But you get a perfect straight line if you've done it correctly. So we get a straight line graph. Okay, and you should label it y equals, with its equation, 2x plus 1. And that's how you draw a straight line graph for that name of graph, y equals 2x plus 1, or that equation. So the name of that line, or the equation of that line, is y equals 2x plus 1. Okay, let's try one more. So if I get rid of this, and I have a look at equation, or the name number 2. The graph this time is y equals, I'm going to make this one a little bit more difficult. I'm going to say it's equal to minus 3 lots of x minus 5. I've got to draw that straight line. What does that look like? Well, I need to get some points to plot, so I create a table of values. The table of values will have x values first and then y on the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4 points. We don't have to work out 4 points. Sometimes you'll work out 3 points, sometimes 5 points. Indeed, when you are drawing straight lines, really, you only need 2 points to be able to join them up to get a straight line. But in practice, when we're doing a table of values, if you're given a choice, I would say always work out at least 3, probably 4 points. Join them up and get your straight line. Don't just do 2 if you're given a choice. Okay, so what x values to pick? Well, you can pick any x values if they don't tell you what x values to use. So pick nice easy x values, like 0, 1, 2, 3 again. So 0, 1, 2, 3 are the x numbers I'm going to pick. Let's work out the y values to go with them. Okay, for this straight line, the y coordinate will always be minus 3 times the x coordinate, take away 5. So if x is equal to 0, y will be equal to minus 3 times nothing, that's nothing, take away 5. That's minus 5. Next, if x is 1, substitute 1 into that. Y will be equal to minus 3 times 1, that's minus 3, take away 5. Minus 3 take away 5, well just think about it, minus 3 take away 5. The technique that I showed you in a previous video for negative numbers is to say a minus army 3 meets a minus army 5. They're the same army, so they join forces with each other to create a big minus army of 8 soldiers. So the answer to that is minus 8. Okay, next, if x is equal to 2, y will be equal to minus 3 times 2. That gives you minus 6. Minus 6, subtract 5. Minus 6 take away 5. Well, minus army 6 meets minus army 5. Join forces, big minus army, 11 soldiers. So that will be minus 11. Okay, if x is equal to 3, so y will be equal to minus 3 times 3. Minus 3 times 3 is minus 9. Remember, I haven't mentioned this, but a minus number times a positive number, minus 3 times a positive 3 gives a minus answer. So minus 3 times 3 is minus 9. Minus 9 take away 5 is minus 14. Like so. So let's set up the axes to plot these. Now, as you can see, the minuses here for the y mean I have to set up my scale, my axes, slightly differently. And if I'm given a choice about this, then you have to be careful how you set it up. So I need positive x numbers, but I do need negative y's. So something like this for my axes is what I'm going to draw. The x numbers go 0, 1, 2 and 3. And the y numbers, well, they go down to minus 14. I'll change the scale and go down in 2s. Minus 2, minus 4, minus 6, minus 8, minus 10, minus 12 and minus 14. So there's the axes set up for this particular question. So plotting the points, 0 on the x, minus 5 on the y. 0 on the x, down to minus 5 on the y, I plot a point. Next one, 1 minus 8. So this point will be 1 on the x, down to minus 8 on the y, which is down there. 2 minus 11. So I go to 2 on the x, and I go down to minus 11, which is down here. And then finally 3 minus 14, which is 3 across and down to minus 14, somewhere down here, like so. You get a ruler, I suppose. You should never do this freehand when you're doing it. You get a ruler and you join them up as best you can to get a perfect, if you've done it right, you should get a perfect straight line. You then label the straight line y equals minus 3x minus 5. If I was an examiner marking my attempt on the board, then obviously I would not get full marks because I just did that freehand. You should be using a ruler to do that. in the examination. Okay, there is the equation of y equals minus 3x minus 5 drawn on a graph, and you get that straight line. And there you go, we've done two very basic examples of how you take the equation or the name of a straight line, and you from that name draw the actual picture that it represents. And that's the end of this video.